2 days after my wedding, while I sat at my mother-in-law's house waiting for our honeymoon, my husband posted photos from the Maldives with another woman. The caption said, "Finally with my real love." I screenshot everything, packed my bags, and made one phone call that changed everything forever. But before I tell you what happened next, before I tell you about that phone call and the aftermath that shook two families to their core, let me start from the beginning. Because this story, my story, didn't start with betrayal. It started with what I thought was love. And hey, before we dive in, if you're enjoying this story, please hit that like button, leave a comment telling me where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. Your support means everything to me and helps me bring you more stories like this one. My name is Harper Sinclair. I'm 29 years old, and until 2 days ago, I thought I was living a dream. I grew up in Charleston, South Carolina, in a modest neighborhood where my mom worked 2 jobs to keep our small house and put food on the table. My father left when I was 7, and I barely remember him. What I do remember is my mother's strength, her determination to give me a better life than she had. I worked hard in school, really hard. I got a full scholarship to the University of South Carolina, majored in marketing, and landed a job right after graduation at a mid-sized advertising firm in Charlotte, North Carolina. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. I earned my own money, rented my own apartment, and built my own life from scratch. That's where I met him, Dylan Matthews. He walked into our office building one afternoon for a meeting with our CEO. I was in the lobby, balancing 3 coffee cups and a stack of presentation boards, when I literally bumped into him. Coffee went everywhere. All over my cream-colored blouse, all over his expensive navy suit. I was mortified. I started apologizing profusely, trying to wipe the coffee off his jacket with napkins, making it worse. But Dylan just laughed. He had this warm, easy laugh that made you feel like everything was going to be okay. "Don't worry about it," he said, his green eyes sparkling with amusement. "I have 10 more suits just like this one at home." I remember thinking he was either very rich or very arrogant. Turned out, he was both, but at that moment, all I saw was a handsome man with a kind smile who wasn't yelling at me for ruining his clothes. He asked for my number right there in the lobby. Said he wanted to take me out to dinner as an apology for making me spill coffee everywhere, even though we both knew it was my fault. I gave him my number. How could I not? He was charming, confident, and he looked at me like I was the only person in the room. Our first date was at this upscale Italian restaurant in downtown Charlotte. The kind of place where the menu doesn't have prices, and the waiter folds your napkin every time you get up to use the restroom. I wore my nicest dress, a simple black number I'd bought on sale at Macy's, and felt completely out of place among the designer-clad patrons. But Dylan made me feel special. He ordered wine I couldn't pronounce, told me stories about his work in real estate development, and asked me genuine questions about my life, my dreams, my family. He seemed fascinated by my story, by the fact that I'd worked my way up from nothing. "You're incredible, Harper," he said that night, reaching across the table to hold my hand. "Most people I know had everything handed to them on a silver platter. You actually earned what you have. That's rare. That's beautiful." I fell for him that night. Hard. We dated for 18 months. 18 months of fancy dinners, weekend getaways to the mountains, surprise flower deliveries to my office. He introduced me to a world I'd only seen in movies. Private wine tastings, charity galas, golf club brunches. And through it all, he made me feel like I belonged there, like I wasn't just some girl from a broken home in Charleston, but someone worthy of this life. He met my mother 6 months into our relationship. We drove down to Charleston on a Saturday morning, and I was so nervous I could barely sit still in the car. My mother still lived in the same small house where I grew up. The paint was peeling a bit, the porch creaked when you stepped on it, and the furniture inside was the same mismatched collection she'd had for 20 years. I worried about what Dylan would think. His family had money, real money. He grew up in a mansion in Greenville with a pool, a tennis court, and staff. Would he judge my mother? Would he see where I came from and realize I didn't belong in his world? But Dylan was perfect. He shook my mother's hand warmly, complimented her cooking even though she'd just made simple fried chicken and mashed potatoes, and spent the whole afternoon listening to her stories about raising me on her own. When we left, my mother pulled me aside. "That's a good man, Harper," she said, her eyes shining with tears. "You hold on to him." And I did. I held on tight. Dylan proposed on a beach in Hilton Head Island during sunset. It was straight out of a romance novel. Rose petals scattered across the sand, a violinist playing somewhere in the distance, the ocean waves providing the perfect soundtrack. He got down on one knee and pulled out a ring that probably cost more than my car. "Harper Sinclair," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "You are the strongest, most beautiful woman I've ever met. You make me want to be a better man. Will you marry me?" I said yes before he even finished the question. I cried. He cried. We held each other as the sun dipped below the horizon, and I remember thinking that this was it. This was my happily ever after. All those years of struggle, all those nights my mother worked late shifts while I did homework alone at the kitchen table, all the scholarships and student loans and cheap ramen dinners, it had all led me here. To this moment. To this man. We set the wedding date for early June, exactly 1 year after the proposal. Dylan wanted a big wedding. His family insisted on it, actually. They wanted to invite their business associates, their country club friends, their distant relatives from all over the South. The guest list ballooned to over 200 people. My mother was worried about the cost. She pulled me aside one day while we were looking at wedding venues. "Harper, honey, I can't afford to help with this," she said quietly, shame coloring her voice. "I wish I could, but..." "Mom, don't worry," I interrupted. "Dylan's family is paying for most of it. And I've saved up. We'll figure it out." What I didn't tell her was that Dylan's mother, Patricia Matthews, had made it very clear that this wedding was going to be a reflection of the Matthews family status. She hired the wedding planner, chose the venue, vetted the guest list. I was allowed to choose my dress and pick the flowers, but everything else was decided by Patricia. I didn't mind, or at least I told myself I didn't mind. This was the price of marrying into the Matthews family. Dylan was their only son, their pride and joy. Of course, they wanted his wedding to be perfect. The months leading up to the wedding were a blur of dress fittings, cake tastings, and vendor meetings. Dylan was busy with a big development project in Colombia, so he left most of the planning to his mother and me. Sometimes I felt more like Patricia's assistant than the bride, but I pushed those feelings down. Then, about 2 months before the wedding, Dylan sat me down for a serious conversation. "Harper," he said, taking both my hands in his, "I need to talk to you about our honeymoon." I smiled, expecting him to tell me he'd booked us an amazing trip somewhere exotic. We talked about going to Greece or maybe Bali. "What about it?" I asked. He looked uncomfortable. "There's been a complication with the project in Colombia. The investors are getting nervous, and I need to be here to handle some issues. I can't take 2 weeks off right after the wedding like we planned." My heart sank. "So, what does that mean?" "It means we need to postpone the honeymoon," he said, squeezing my hands. "Just for a little while. Maybe a month or 2, until things settle down." "I'm so sorry, baby. I know you were looking forward to it." I was disappointed, but I understood. Dylan had worked incredibly hard on this project. It was important to him, to his career. I could wait a few more weeks for our honeymoon. "It's okay," I said, forcing a smile. "We have our whole lives together." "What's a few more weeks?" He pulled me into a hug, kissing the top of my head. "You're amazing, you know that? So understanding. I don't deserve you." Looking back now, those words feel like poison. The wedding day arrived on a perfect June morning. The ceremony was held at a beautiful historic plantation outside of Greenville. White roses everywhere, string quartet playing Pachelbel's canon, 200 guests in their finest attire. I walked down the aisle on my mother's arm because I had no father to give me away, and when I saw Dylan standing at the altar in his custom-made tuxedo, I thought my heart might burst with happiness. We said our vows. We exchanged rings. We kissed as husband and wife, while everyone applauded. The reception was like something out of a magazine. A 10-piece band, a 5-tier cake, champagne flowing freely. Dylan's father gave a toast about how proud he was of his son. My mother cried happy tears. Everyone danced and laughed and celebrated. Dylan and I snuck away during the reception for a private moment. We stood on a balcony overlooking the gardens, his arms around my waist. "Mrs. Matthews," he whispered into my ear, "how does it feel?" Perfect, I whispered back. Everything is perfect. We spent our wedding night at a luxury hotel in downtown Greenville. Dylan had booked the penthouse suite. We drank more champagne, made love, and fell asleep wrapped in each other's arms. I remember lying there in the darkness, listening to him breathe, thinking that this was the beginning of my new life. Harper Matthews, wife to an amazing man, future mother to beautiful children, part of a family that would never leave me the way my father did. The next morning, we had brunch with his family at their estate. This massive house with columns and a circular driveway, the kind of place that has a name. Magnolia Heights, they called it. Patricia had insisted on this post-wedding brunch, wanted to have the family together one more time before Dylan and I started our married life. Except, of course, there was no honeymoon to start our married life. Just the postponement. Just the waiting. After brunch, Dylan drove me to his mother's house. Not the main estate where his parents lived, but a smaller property on the same land that Patricia used as a guest house. It was still bigger than any place I'd ever lived, with 4 bedrooms, a gourmet kitchen, and a view of the rolling hills. "You'll stay here while I sort out the Columbia situation," Dylan said as he carried my suitcase inside. "Mom will make sure you have everything you need. I'll come back on weekends, and as soon as I can get away for more than a few days, we'll take that honeymoon. I promise." Something felt wrong. I couldn't articulate what it was. Just this nagging feeling in my gut. "Dylan," I said slowly, "why can't I just come with you to Columbia? I can work remotely for a few weeks. We could at least be together." He shook his head. "The hotel situation there is a mess right now, because of the project. I'm basically sleeping in a construction trailer half the time. It's no place for you, Harper. You'll be much more comfortable here. Trust me." Trust me. Those 2 words that would haunt me. I watched him drive away that afternoon, his BMW disappearing down the long driveway. And then I was alone in Patricia's guest house, 2 days married, waiting for my husband to have time for me. Patricia was kind enough, I suppose. She checked on me that first evening, brought over some casserole she'd made, asked if I needed anything. But there was something in her eyes, something I couldn't quite read. Pity, maybe? Or satisfaction. I unpacked my suitcase, hung up my clothes in the massive walk-in closet, and tried to settle in. I called my mother that night. "How's married life?" she asked, her voice bright with excitement. I couldn't tell her the truth. Couldn't tell her that my husband had left me at his mother's house like a piece of luggage while he went to deal with work.
Zoe liegt.
"It's wonderful, Mom. The wedding was perfect, and we're just enjoying some quiet time together before the honeymoon." "I'm so happy for you, baby," she said. "You deserve all of this." After we hung up, I sat alone in that big, empty house and wondered why I felt so hollow. The next day, I tried to keep myself busy. I answered work emails, went for a run around the property, made myself lunch in the kitchen that had more appliances than I knew how to use. Dylan texted me a few times. Short messages. "Busy day. Miss you. Talk tonight." But when night came, he didn't call. He sent another text around 10 p.m. "Exhausted. Going to crash. Love you." I stared at that message for a long time. 2 days married, and we were already communicating through text messages. I told myself I was being unreasonable. The man was working. He was building our future. I needed to be patient, understanding, supportive. That's what good wives did, right? On the second day of my marriage, I woke up alone in that guest house, made myself coffee, and sat on the back porch watching the sunrise. It was a beautiful morning. Birds singing, dew on the grass, the kind of peaceful scene that should have made me happy. Instead, I felt uneasy. That same nagging feeling from before, only stronger now. I went inside and opened my laptop, planning to get some work done. But first, I checked my social media. Instagram, specifically. I pulled up Dylan's profile, something I did probably too often just to see his posts, to feel connected to him. What I saw made my blood run cold. The most recent post, uploaded just hours ago, was a photo of a beach. Crystal clear turquoise water, white sand, a perfect cloudless sky. The location tag said Maldives. My hands started shaking. I scrolled through. There were more photos. Dylan in swim trunks, sunglasses on, smiling at the camera. A beachfront villa with an infinity pool. a sunset over the ocean. And then I saw it. A photo of Dylan with a woman. She was blonde, tan, beautiful, wearing a tiny white bikini. They were in the water together, his arm around her waist, both of them laughing at something off camera. The intimacy in that photo was undeniable. The way he held her, the way she leaned into him, the pure joy on both their faces. But it was the caption that destroyed me. Finally, with my real love, I read it 3 times. 4 times. 5 times. The words didn't change. They stayed there on the screen, each letter a knife in my heart. Finally, with my real love. Not finally on that vacation I've been planning. Not finally getting some time to relax. Finally, with my real love. My husband of 2 days was in the Maldives with another woman, and he'd just announced to the world that she was his real love. I don't remember the next few minutes very clearly. I think I sat there in shock, unable to move, unable to breathe, unable to process what I was seeing. My brain couldn't reconcile the 2 realities. Dylan, who'd proposed to me on a beach, who'd vowed to love and cherish me just 2 days ago, who'd promised me forever. And Dylan, who was currently on a tropical island with someone else, calling her his real love. When the shock wore off, the pain hit. Physical, actual pain in my chest, like someone had reached into my ribcage and was squeezing my heart with both hands. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, could only feel this overwhelming, devastating hurt. Tears came. Hot, angry tears that blurred my vision and streamed down my face. I sobbed. Deep, wrenching sobs that shook my whole body. I cried for myself, for my mother who'd been so happy at the wedding, for the future I thought I had, for the love I thought was real. I don't know how long I sat there crying. Minutes. Hours. Time lost all meaning. Eventually, the tears stopped. And in their place came something else. Something colder. Harder. Rage. How dare he? How dare he make me believe in fairy tales and happy endings when he was planning this all along? How dare he let me marry him, let me stand in front of 200 people and promise to love him forever, when he was in love with someone else? And then the questions came flooding in. How long had this been going on? Who was she? Did his family know? Was this why he postponed the honeymoon? Was the Columbia project even real, or was that just a lie to explain his absence? My hands, which had been shaking from crying, steadied. I took a deep breath. And then I did the most important thing I would do in the next 24 hours. I screenshot everything. Every photo on his Instagram. Every caption. Every comment. I scrolled back through his feed, looking for other signs I'd missed. And I found them. Photos from a month ago, 2 months ago, 3 months ago. Always the same blonde woman, though he'd been careful to crop her face or take pictures where she was just out of frame. Captions that now seemed loaded with double meaning. Can't wait for summer. Counting down the days. Soon. He'd been planning this. For months. Maybe longer. I screenshot every single post. Saved them to a folder on my laptop. Backed them up to the cloud. Made sure I had irrefutable evidence of what he'd done. Then I went to the bedroom and started packing my bags. I moved mechanically, folding clothes, zipping suitcases, gathering my toiletries from the bathroom. I took everything that was mine. My clothes, my shoes, my books, my laptop. I left the wedding gifts, the fancy kitchen appliances people had bought us, the monogrammed towels that said, Mr. and Mrs. Matthews. As I packed, my mind was working, planning, calculating. I knew what I had to do, but I needed to be smart about it. Strategic. I dragged my suitcases to the front door. Took one last look around that guest house, that beautiful prison where I'd spent 2 days of my married life waiting for a man who was never coming back. And then I pulled out my phone and made the phone call that would change everything. I didn't call Dylan. Didn't call my mother. Didn't call my friends. I called the one person who could help me destroy Dylan Matthews and his perfect life with one conversation. The phone rang twice before she answered. Harper. Patricia Matthews' voice came through the line, surprised. Is everything all right, dear? I took a deep breath. No, Patricia, I said, my voice eerily calm. Everything is not all right, and I think it's time you knew the truth about your son. What happened next would set in motion a chain of events that would expose not just Dylan's betrayal, but secrets that had been buried in the Matthews family for years. Secrets that would shatter Patricia's perfect world just as completely as Dylan had shattered mine. But I'm getting ahead of myself. First, I had to have that conversation with my mother-in-law. I had to show her those screenshots, watch her face change as she realized what her precious son had done. And then together, we would plan our next move. Because Dylan Matthews had made one critical mistake. He'd underestimated me. Thought I was just some grateful girl from Charleston who would sit quietly in his mother's guest house and wait for him to come back when it was convenient. He forgot that I was the daughter of a woman who'd raised a child alone, who'd worked 2 jobs and never complained, who taught me that strength isn't about never falling down, it's about getting back up. He forgot that I'd built my entire life from nothing, earned every opportunity I'd ever had, fought for every success. He thought I would break. He was wrong. I hung up my phone after talking to Patricia and pulled my suitcases out the door. The morning sun was bright, almost painfully so. Birds were still singing. The world kept turning, indifferent to the fact that mine had just exploded. I loaded everything into my car, took one last look at Magnolia Heights in my rearview mirror, and drove away. I didn't know exactly what would happen next, but I knew one thing with absolute certainty. Dylan Matthews was about to learn that betraying Harper Sinclair was the biggest mistake of his life. And this was only the beginning. I drove for about 20 minutes before I had to pull over. My hands were shaking again, but not from sadness this time. From adrenaline. From the sheer enormity of what I was about to do. I parked in a lot of a small coffee shop off Highway 85, went inside, ordered a black coffee I didn't really want, and sat at a corner table with my laptop. The conversation with Patricia had been brief, but explosive. When I told her I needed to speak with her urgently, she'd assumed something was wrong with the house. A leak, maybe, or a problem with the appliances. She certainly hadn't expected what I actually had to tell her. I need you to look at something, I'd said, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. Check your son's Instagram account. Right now. There had been a pause. Then I'd heard her moving, probably getting her phone or iPad. Patricia was active on social media, always posting about charity events and family gatherings. She followed Dylan religiously, commented on all his posts with heart emojis and proud mother declarations. I'd waited, listening to the silence on the other end of the line, knowing the exact moment she saw what I'd seen. The sharp intake of breath, the small, shocked "oh." Patricia, I'd said quietly, did you know about this? Did you know about her?
No.
Her voice had been barely a whisper. Harper, I swear to you, I had no idea. I don't understand. He's supposed to be in Colombia. He told us he was in Colombia. He told me that too, I'd said. Looks like he lied to both of us. There had been another long silence. Then Patricia's voice had changed. Gone cold. Hard. Don't leave that house, she'd said. Don't go anywhere. I'm coming to you right now. We need to talk about this face to face. I'm already gone, I'd replied. I'm not staying in your guest house waiting for a man who's on a honeymoon with someone else. But yes, we do need to talk. I'll text you an address where we can meet. And that's how I'd ended up in this coffee shop, waiting for my mother-in-law to arrive so we could figure out what to do about her son's spectacular betrayal. I opened my laptop and pulled up Dylan's Instagram again. The photos were still there. He hadn't taken them down. Why would he? He probably thought I'd never see them. After all, I was supposed to be tucked away at his mother's house, patiently waiting for him to return from his business trip. I looked at the blonde woman again. Zoomed in on her face. She was young, maybe mid-20s. Pretty in that effortless way some women are, with perfect beach waves and the kind of tan that comes from actual tropical vacations, not spray booths. Her Instagram was public. Her name was Ashley Brennan. I clicked on her profile. Scrolled through her feed. There were hundreds of photos. Ashley at various beaches. Ashley in expensive restaurants. Ashley in designer clothes. And interspersed throughout, photos of Dylan. Some were older, going back almost 2 years. 2 years. They'd been together for 2 years. My stomach churned. 2 years ago, Dylan and I had already been dating. We were serious. We were talking about marriage. He'd been with both of us. For over a year. He'd been living a double life. I found a photo from 8 months ago. Ashley and Dylan at what looked like a fancy restaurant, celebrating something. The caption read, "He finally told his family about us. Best night ever." My hands clenched into fists.
He told his family.
8 months ago, he told his family about Ashley. But Patricia had seemed genuinely shocked on the phone. Had she been lying? Or had Dylan told his father and kept it from his mother? I kept scrolling. Found a photo from just 3 months ago. Ashley wearing a diamond ring on her left hand, caption reading, "Can't wait to spend forever with you."
Wait. A ring.
An engagement ring. I looked closer at the photo. The ring was beautiful. A large princess-cut diamond in a platinum setting. Probably 3 or 4 carats. Bigger than my ring. My mind reeled. Had Dylan proposed to both of us? Was he planning to marry both of us?
No.
That didn't make sense. You can't marry 2 people. Unless. The realization hit me like a physical blow. He'd never planned to stay married to me. This whole thing, the wedding, the vows, the promises, it was all temporary. A show. Maybe for his business connections, or for some other reason I didn't understand yet. But he'd never intended for our marriage to be real. He was going to marry Ashley. She was the real love, the one he'd chosen. I was just what? A placeholder? A business arrangement? The coffee shop door opened, and Patricia Matthews walked in. She looked different than I'd ever seen her. Usually perfectly put together, her hair styled, her makeup flawless, wearing designer clothes and expensive jewelry. But right now, she looked shaken. Her hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail. She was wearing jeans and a simple sweater, and her face was bare of makeup. She spotted me immediately and walked over. Sat down across from me without a word. For a long moment, we just looked at each other. 2 women who'd been betrayed by the same man. "Show me everything," Patricia finally said. I turned my laptop around and walked her through it. Dylan's posts, Ashley's posts, the timeline of their relationship, the engagement ring. Patricia's face grew paler with each new revelation. Her hands trembled as she held the laptop, scrolling through the evidence of her son's deception. 2 years, she whispered. He's been lying to us for 2 years. To me too, I said quietly. We were together for 18 months, which means for at least 6 months of our relationship he was also with her. Patricia looked up at me. There were tears in her eyes. "I am so sorry, Harper," she said. "I know that doesn't mean much right now, but I truly am. I raised him better than this. Or at least I thought I did." "Did you really not know?" I asked. I had to know. Because Ashley posted that he told his family 8 months ago. Patricia shook her head firmly. "I knew nothing." But she paused, her expression darkening. "But Richard might have. My husband. Dylan's father." "Why do you say that?" "Because there have been conversations between them lately that stopped whenever I entered the room. Phone calls where Richard would step outside. I thought it was business. Richard and Dylan have several projects together. But now I'm wondering." She pulled out her own phone and started typing furiously. "What are you doing?" I asked. "Texting Richard. Asking him to come home immediately. If he knew about this, if he helped Dylan hide this from me, from you." Her voice was ice. "He's going to answer for it." I leaned back in my chair, watching my mother-in-law become an ally in what was quickly shaping up to be a war. "What are you going to do?" Patricia asked me, setting her phone down. "I don't know yet," I admitted. "But I'm not going to just disappear quietly. I'm not going to make this easy for him." "Good," Patricia said firmly. "You shouldn't. My son made vows to you. In front of God and 200 witnesses. He doesn't get to just throw that away like it meant nothing." Her phone buzzed. She glanced at it, and her jaw tightened. "Richard says he's in a meeting. I can't talk until this evening." She looked at me. "That's a lie. I can always tell when he's lying." Which means he definitely knows something. I felt a strange sense of solidarity with this woman. Just hours ago, she'd been my mother-in-law, a relationship that felt more like a business arrangement than a family bond. But now we were co-conspirators, united against the men who'd lied to us. "I need to figure out my next steps," I said. "I can't stay at your guest house. I can't go back to Charlotte to my old apartment because I gave it up before the wedding. I don't have anywhere to go." Patricia reached across the table and took my hand. "You can stay at one of our rental properties," she said. "We have a condo in downtown Greenville that's between tenants right now. It's fully furnished. You can stay there as long as you need to while you figure things out. And Harper."
She squeezed my hand.
"We're going to figure this out together. I don't know what my son is playing at, but I promise you, he's not going to get away with it." I nodded, grateful for the support, even as part of me wondered if I could really trust her. She was Dylan's mother after all. Would she really help me destroy her own son? But looking into her eyes, I saw genuine anger there. Genuine hurt. Patricia Matthews was a woman who valued family, yes, but she valued honor more. And Dylan had dishonored her, dishonored me, dishonored the Matthews name. That was something she couldn't forgive. "Thank you," I said quietly. We exchanged information. Patricia gave me the address of the condo and said she'd have keys made for me by the afternoon. She also gave me the name of her personal attorney, a shark of a divorce lawyer who'd apparently handled the divorces of half the wealthy families in South Carolina.
"Call him," she said.
"Tell him I sent you. He'll take care of you." After Patricia left, I sat alone in the coffee shop for a while longer, staring at my laptop screen. At Dylan's smiling face in those tropical photos. At Ashley Brennan, the woman he'd chosen over me. And I made a decision. I wasn't going to cry anymore. Wasn't going to wallow in self-pity or wonder what I'd done wrong. Because I hadn't done anything wrong.
This wasn't about me.
This was about Dylan being a liar and a cheat. And liars and cheats deserve to be exposed. I pulled up my own Instagram account. I had about 800 followers, mostly friends from college, co-workers, acquaintances from the marketing world. Not a huge following, but enough. I selected one of the screenshots I'd taken. The one of Dylan and Ashley in the water, his arm around her, with the caption, "Finally with my real love." And I made my own post. I uploaded the screenshot, and I wrote, "2 days ago, I married the man in this photo. Today, while I sit at his mother's house waiting for our postponed honeymoon, I find out he's in the Maldives with his real love. Thanks for the memories, Dylan Matthews. And congratulations to Ashley Brennan on winning a prize I no longer want." My finger hovered over the post button. This would be public.
Everyone would see it.
Dylan's friends, his business associates, everyone who'd been at our wedding just 2 days ago. This would humiliate him. Good. I pressed post. Within minutes, the comments started rolling in. Friends expressing shock and support. A few people I barely knew sharing the post. Someone tagging Dylan and Ashley directly. My phone started buzzing with messages. My mother. My friends. Co-workers. Everyone wanted to know if this was real, if I was okay, what had happened. I ignored them all. There would be time for explanations later. Right now, I had work to do. Because exposing Dylan on social media was just the beginning. What I had planned next would ensure that he never recovered from this. That his reputation, his business, his perfect life would crumble just as completely as my heart had when I'd seen those photos. Dylan Matthews thought he could have everything. The prestigious wedding to show off to his business world. The secret girlfriend for true love. The naive wife who'd wait quietly while he lived his double life. He was about to learn that actions have consequences. And I was going to be the one to teach him that lesson. My Instagram post exploded faster than I ever could have imagined. Within an hour, it had over 500 likes and 100 comments. By the afternoon, it had been shared 50 times. People were tagging Dylan, tagging Ashley, tagging mutual friends who'd been at our wedding. The comments ranged from supportive to absolutely savage. "Oh my God, Harper, I'm so sorry. What a piece of trash. You deserve so much better. I knew something was off about him at the wedding. He barely looked at you during the ceremony. Ashley Brennan is about to learn what karma feels like. The audacity to post finally with my real love while his wife is waiting for him. Disgusting." But the most interesting comments were the ones from people who claimed they'd suspected this all along. Wedding guests who said Dylan had seemed distracted. Business associates who mentioned seeing him with a blonde woman at various events over the past year. Friends who'd apparently been told to keep quiet about Ashley's existence. The web of lies was unraveling, and I was pulling every thread. I sat in Patricia's downtown condo, a sleek modern space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, and watched my phone blow up with notifications. Part of me felt guilty for the public spectacle, but a larger part of me felt vindicated. Dylan had humiliated me. Now the world would know what he'd done. My mother called around noon. I'd been avoiding her calls all morning, but I couldn't put it off any longer. "Harper Elizabeth Sinclair," she said the moment I answered, using my full name the way she only did when she was either very proud or very upset. "What in God's name is happening? I just saw your Instagram post. Please tell me this is some kind of misunderstanding." I closed my eyes, leaning back against the leather couch. "It's not a misunderstanding, Mom. Dylan's been cheating on me for years. He's in the Maldives right now with his girlfriend while I'm sitting here 2 days after our wedding." The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. "That son of a—" My mother caught herself. She rarely cursed, even when angry. "Harper, baby, where are you? Are you okay? Do you need me to come get you?" "I'm okay," I said, surprised to find that it was at least partially true. "I mean, I'm not okay, but I'm safe. Patricia gave me a place to stay. We're handling this together." "Patricia knows?" My mother sounded shocked. "And she's helping you?" She didn't know about Ashley either. Dylan lied to both of us. Maybe to his whole family, though I'm not so sure about his father. "What are you going to do?" It was the question everyone seemed to be asking. What was I going to do? "I'm going to divorce him," I said firmly. "Patricia gave me the name of a good lawyer. I'm meeting with him tomorrow morning, and I'm going to make sure Dylan doesn't just walk away from this unscathed." My mother was quiet for a moment. Then she said something that surprised me. "Good. That boy made promises to you in front of everyone we know. He doesn't get to break those promises without consequences. You fight for yourself, Harper. You hear me? You fight." Tears pricked at my eyes, but I blinked them back. "I will, Mom. I promise." After we hung up, I sat staring out the windows at the Greenville skyline. The city looked so peaceful from up here. People going about their lives, completely unaware that mine had just imploded. My phone rang again. This time, it was a number I didn't recognize. "Hello, Mrs. Matthews?" A professional male voice. "This is Jonathan Pierce from Pierce and Associates. Patricia Matthews asked me to reach out to you regarding your situation." "The lawyer?" "Of course." "Yes, thank you for calling," I said, sitting up straighter. "I appreciate you making time for me on such short notice." "Patricia is one of my most valued clients," he said. "When she calls, I make time. Now, she's given me a brief overview of the circumstances, but I'd like to hear the details directly from you. Can you come to my office tomorrow morning? Say 9 o'clock. I'll be there."
"Good."
"In the meantime, I need you to do a few things. First, do not delete that Instagram post or any of the screenshots you took. In fact, take more screenshots if there are any updates. Document everything. Second, do not respond to any communication from your husband until we've had a chance to talk. No texts, no calls, nothing. If he tries to contact you, let it go to voicemail or let the message sit unread."
"Can you do that?"
"Yes," I said. The idea of talking to Dylan right now made me physically ill anyway. Third, gather any financial documents you have access to. Bank statements, credit card bills, any paperwork related to shared assets or wedding expenses. I'll need to see everything." "Okay. And Harper." His voice softened slightly. "I know this is an incredibly difficult time, but you've already done the right thing by documenting the evidence and reaching out for legal help. We're going to get through this, and we're going to make sure you're protected. I promise you that." After the call ended, I felt a strange sense of purpose settling over me. I had a plan now. A lawyer, a place to stay, an ally in Patricia. I wasn't helpless. I wasn't broken. I was angry. And anger, I was learning, could be incredibly motivating. I spent the rest of the afternoon doing exactly what Jonathan had told me to do. I went through my email, my files, my documents. I pulled up bank statements from the joint account Dylan and I had opened 3 months ago for wedding expenses. We'd each deposited $20,000 into it, though Dylan had assured me his parents would cover most of the actual costs. Looking at the statements now, I saw charges I didn't recognize. Expensive dinners at restaurants I'd never been to. Hotels in cities where Dylan had claimed to be on business trips. Jewelry purchases. One charge in particular caught my eye, a $12,000 payment to a travel agency, dated 2 months ago. The Maldives trip. He'd used our joint account to book a vacation with his mistress. I screenshot everything and saved it to a folder labeled Divorce Evidence. As evening approached, my phone started ringing again. This time it was a call I'd been both expecting and dreading.
Dylan.
I stared at his name on my screen, my thumb hovering over the answer button. Jonathan had told me not to talk to him, but a part of me desperately wanted to hear what he could possibly say to justify this. What excuse could he possibly give? The call went to voicemail. 30 seconds later, another call. Then another. 5 calls in a row, all unanswered. Then the text started. Harper, please pick up. I can explain everything. It's not what it looks like. Why did you post that on Instagram? Do you have any idea what you've done? That last message made me laugh out loud. What I'd done? What about what he'd done?
More texts flooded in.
My phone is blowing up. People are calling me a cheater. You need to take that post down right now. This is destroying my reputation. My business partners are asking questions. Answer your phone, Harper. We need to talk about this like adults. Like adults. The audacity. Not once did he apologize. Not once did he say he was sorry for hurting me. Every message was about how my post had affected him, damaged his image, caused him problems. I took screenshots of every single text message and added them to my evidence folder. Then I did something that felt both terrifying and liberating. I blocked his number. The silence that followed was profound. No more buzzing phone. No more desperate texts. Just quiet. I ordered takeout for dinner, Thai food from a place nearby, and ate it sitting on the floor in front of the windows, watching the sun set over Greenville. The food was delicious, but I barely tasted it. My mind was too busy racing through everything that had happened, everything I'd learned. Dylan had been living a double life for at least 2 years. He'd proposed to Ashley before he proposed to me. He'd used our joint account to fund his affair. He'd lied to everyone, me, his mother, probably countless other people. And yet he'd still gone through with the wedding.
Why?
That was the question that kept nagging at me. If he loved Ashley, if she was his real love, why marry me at all? Why go through the expense, the hassle, the public declarations? There had to be a reason. Something I wasn't seeing yet. My phone buzzed with a text from Patricia. Richard just got home. We're having a conversation. I'll call you later with an update. I wondered what that conversation looked like. Patricia confronting her husband about whether he'd known. Richard trying to defend his son or make excuses. The Matthews family was fracturing, and I was the catalyst. Around 9 p.m., Patricia called. Harper, she said without preamble, her voice tight with barely controlled fury. Richard knew. He's known about Ashley for over a year. He helped Dylan hide it from me. I wasn't surprised, but hearing it confirmed still felt like a punch to the gut. Why? I asked. Why would he help Dylan lie? Because apparently, in the Matthews family, business comes before everything else. Patricia's voice dripped with bitterness. Dylan needed to get married for some deal he was working on. Some investor who would only partner with family men. Richard thought it was a smart business move. They planned the whole thing together. My stomach turned. I was a business move? According to my husband, you were a strategic choice. You were respectable, hardworking, not for money, so you wouldn't have family connections that could complicate things. You were perfect for the role. The role. Like I was an actress in their play. And Ashley? I managed to ask. She's Richard's accountant's daughter, Patricia said. Richard introduced them. He knew about the relationship from the beginning. In fact, he encouraged it. Said Dylan deserved to have real love in his life, even if he had to marry someone else for business purposes. I felt like I might be sick. Patricia, I'm so sorry, I said quietly. I know he's your son, and Richard is your husband. Stop, she interrupted. You have nothing to apologize for. I'm the one who should be apologizing to you. My family used you, manipulated you, treated you like a pawn in some business game. That's unforgivable. What are you going to do? There was a long pause. Then, I'm going to help you destroy them both. Dylan and Richard. They think they're so smart, playing their business games with people's lives. They're about to learn that I'm smarter. And I'm angrier. A chill ran down my spine. Patricia Matthews was a formidable woman under normal circumstances. An angry Patricia Matthews was downright terrifying.
How?
I asked. Come to my house tomorrow after your meeting with Jonathan, she said. Not the main house. The guest house where you stayed. 2 p.m. I'll have some things to show you. Things about Dylan and Richard's business dealings that they thought I didn't know about. Things that are going to be very useful in court. After we hung up, I sat in the darkness of the condo, processing everything I'd learned. My marriage wasn't just a betrayal. It was a calculated business arrangement. Dylan had never loved me. He'd never intended to build a life with me. I was just a prop in his corporate theater. The pain of that realization was almost worse than discovering the affair. At least if he'd fallen in love with someone else, if he'd made a mistake, there would be some element of human emotion to it. But this was cold, calculated, cruel. I thought about the 18 months we'd dated. All those romantic dinners, the weekend getaways, the proposal on the beach. Had any of it been real? Or had it all been an audition for the role of Dylan Matthews' respectable wife? I thought about our wedding day. Standing at that altar, saying vows I believed with my whole heart while he recited words that meant nothing to him. Had he been thinking about Ashley the whole time? Planning his escape to the Maldives while I planned our future together? The tears came again, but they were different this time. Not the broken, sobbing tears from this morning. These were hot, angry tears. Tears of rage at being used, at being lied to, at being considered disposable. I cried for the version of myself who'd believed in fairy tales and happy endings. For the girl who'd thought she'd finally found someone who loved her for who she was, not for what she could provide. That girl was gone. In her place was someone harder. Someone who understood that trust was a luxury she could no longer afford. I wiped my tears and opened my laptop. If Dylan thought the Instagram post was bad, he had no idea what was coming. I started doing research about Dylan's business, his partnerships, his investments, about the deal Richard had mentioned, the one that required a married man. I searched public records, business filings, news articles, and I found something interesting. 3 months ago, Dylan had announced a major partnership with a development firm called Greenfield Properties. The CEO, Marcus Greenfield, was quoted in several articles talking about his company's values. Family values. Traditional values. He specifically mentioned that he only did business with people who shared those values. The deal was worth $20 million. 20 million reasons for Dylan to get married, even if it was a sham. I dug deeper. Found the official announcement, complete with photos of Dylan and Marcus shaking hands. And there, in the background of one photo, was Richard Matthews, smiling like a proud father. This was it. This was why Dylan married me. But here's what Dylan and Richard didn't know. Marcus Greenfield's company had a morality clause in all their partnership agreements. I found it buried in a press release about a previous deal that had fallen through when their partner was caught in a scandal. Greenfield Properties reserved the right to terminate any partnership if their partner engaged in behavior that conflicted with the company's values, including specifically infidelity. A slow smile spread across my face. Dylan thought he was so smart, thought he could have his business deal and his mistress too. Thought I'd sit quietly at his mother's house, none the wiser. But I had evidence, screenshots, bank statements. And now I knew exactly where to send them. I drafted an email to Marcus Greenfield's office. Professional, polite, devastating. Dear Mr. Greenfield, my name is Harper Sinclair Matthews. I recently married Dylan Matthews of Matthews Development. I'm writing to inform you of circumstances regarding Mr. Matthews that may be relevant to your business partnership. I have documented evidence that Mr. Matthews has been engaged in an extramarital affair for approximately 2 years, including during our courtship and marriage. He is currently vacationing in the Maldives with his mistress, Ashley Brennan, just 2 days after our wedding ceremony. I understand that Greenfield Properties values integrity and family values in your business partnerships. I thought you should be aware of this situation as you consider your continued association with Mr. Matthews. I have attached photographic evidence to this email. Should you require any additional documentation, please don't hesitate to contact me. Respectfully, Harper Sinclair Matthews. I attached several screenshots, Dylan and Ashley together, his Instagram caption, the bank statements showing charges for the Maldives trip. My cursor hovered over the send button. This would destroy the deal. $20 million gone. Dylan's reputation in the business community shattered. His partnership with his father irreparably damaged. This would be nuclear. I thought about my mother working 2 jobs to raise me alone. About all the times we'd struggled. All the times she'd gone without so I could have what I needed. She taught me to be strong, to stand up for myself, to never let anyone treat me as less than I was worth. Dylan Matthews had treated me like I was worthless. Like I was a convenient solution to a business problem. It was time he learned the cost of that mistake. I clicked send. The email disappeared into the ether, carrying with it the destruction of everything Dylan had worked for. I closed my laptop and went to bed, sleeping better than I had since my wedding night. The next morning, I woke early, dressed in a black pantsuit that made me look professional and powerful, and drove to Jonathan Pierce's law office in downtown Greenville. The office was exactly what I expected: dark wood, leather furniture, shelves full of legal books. Jonathan himself was a distinguished-looking man in his 50s with gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. He listened carefully as I walked him through everything. The relationship with Dylan, the wedding, the discovery of the affair, the Instagram post, the texts, my conversation with Patricia, everything I'd learned about the business arrangement. When I mentioned the email to Marcus Greenfield, Jonathan's eyebrows rose.
That was bold, he said.
Was it stupid? I asked, suddenly worried. He shook his head.
No.
Actually, it was smart. It establishes that Dylan's infidelity has tangible financial consequences, which will be useful in the divorce proceedings. And it shows that you're not going to be a passive victim. That matters. Relief washed over me. We spent the next 2 hours going through the legal process. Divorce in South Carolina required a 1-year separation period unless there was proven adultery. I had more than enough proof for the adultery exemption. We'll file immediately, Jonathan said. But Harper, I need to prepare you for what's coming. Dylan is going to fight this. Not because he wants to save the marriage, but because divorce is going to complicate his life significantly. And based on what you've told me about his father, Richard will likely get involved too. They're going to try to discredit you, to make you seem like the unreasonable party. Let them try, I said. I have evidence. They have lies. Jonathan smiled. That's the spirit. Now about finances. You mentioned a joint account. We need to freeze that immediately so Dylan can't drain it. And if there are any other shared assets. The house, I said. Well, the guest house where I stayed. Patricia said it was for us to live in until we found our own place. Is your name on any deed or rental agreement?
No.
It's Patricia's property. Then we can't claim it. But that's fine. You don't want to be tied to their property anyway. What about wedding gifts? I thought about all those expensive appliances and fancy serving platters still in their boxes at the guest house. I left everything there, I said. I don't want any of it. It all feels contaminated now. Jonathan nodded understandingly. That's your choice. Though legally, wedding gifts belong to both parties and could be divided in the divorce settlement. I don't care about stuff, I said firmly. I care about justice. I care about making sure Dylan faces consequences for what he did. Then that's what we'll focus on, Jonathan said. I'll draft the divorce petition today. You should receive papers to sign by tomorrow. And Harper, you're doing the right thing. I know it doesn't feel like it now, but you are. I left his office feeling oddly calm. Like I was finally taking control of a situation that had been spiraling out of my grasp. At 2 p.m., I arrived at Patricia's guest house. She was waiting for me, and she wasn't alone. Sitting at the dining room table was a woman I didn't recognize. Mid-40s, professional attire, laptop open in front of her. Harper, this is Sandra Chun, Patricia said. She's a forensic accountant. I've hired her to go through Dylan and Richard's business records. Sandra stood and shook my hand. Mrs. Matthews, Patricia has filled me in on your situation. I'm very sorry for what you're going through. Thank you, I said, still confused about why an accountant was here. Patricia gestured for me to sit. I did some digging last night after I talked to you. Into Richard's files. He keeps everything in his home office, and he's always been careless about locking things up because he never thought I'd care to look. She slid a folder across the table to me. What I found, she continued, is evidence of financial irregularities in several of Dylan and Richard's business ventures. Money being moved around in ways that don't quite add up. Investors being given false information about project timelines and costs. Possible tax evasion. My eyes widened. You're saying they're committing fraud? I'm saying there are serious questions that need to be answered, Patricia said carefully. And Sandra here is going to help us find those answers. Sandra opened her laptop. I've only had a few hours to review the initial documents Patricia provided, but I've already found several red flags. If your divorce proceeds and these financial issues come to light in court, it could have significant implications not just for your settlement, but for Dylan and Richard's business operations overall. Could they go to prison? I asked. Let's not get ahead of ourselves, Sandra said. But yes, if there's proven fraud, especially involving federal taxes or investor money, criminal charges are a possibility. I looked at Patricia. Why are you doing this? He's your son. Richard is your husband. Patricia's expression hardened. They used my name, my family's reputation, to build their business. And then they abused that trust. They lied to me, manipulated you, and apparently broke several laws in the process. I won't be complicit in that. Not anymore. I realized in that moment that Patricia Matthews was a woman scorned in her own right. Richard had betrayed her by helping Dylan deceive everyone. Dylan had dishonored the family name she'd worked to uphold. Hell hath no fury, indeed. What do you need from me? I asked. Just keep doing what you're doing, Patricia said. Document everything. Work with Jonathan on the divorce. Let Sandra and me handle the business side. And Harper? Don't feel guilty about any of this. You didn't cause this situation. Dylan and Richard did. They chose to lie, to cheat, to break the law. We're just making sure they face the consequences. I left the guest house that afternoon with a strange sense of unreality. 24 hours ago, I'd been a devastated newlywed who discovered her husband's affair. Now I was part of a 3-woman team working to dismantle an entire business empire built on lies. My phone buzzed with a notification. An email response from Marcus Greenfield's office. Mrs. Matthews, thank you for bringing this matter to our attention. We take these allegations very seriously. Our legal team will be reviewing the evidence you provided and the terms of our partnership agreement with Mr. Matthews. We will be in touch if we require additional information. Marcus Greenfield, CEO. Greenfield Properties.
Short.
Professional. Devastating. I showed the email to Patricia in a text. Her response was immediate.
Good.
Let's see Dylan talk his way out of this. That evening, alone in the condo, I allowed myself to really think about what I was doing. I was destroying Dylan's business. Probably destroying his relationship with his father. Definitely destroying his reputation. Part of me wondered if I was going too far. If this was overkill. But then I remembered his Instagram posts. Finally, with my real love. The way he'd used our joint account to pay for his affair. The fact that he'd never intended our marriage to be real, that I'd been nothing more than a business transaction.
No.
I wasn't going too far. I was going exactly far enough. My phone rang. An unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Is this Harper Matthews? A woman's voice.
Young.
Uncertain. Who is this? It's Ashley. Ashley Brennan. Please don't hang up. I need to talk to you. Of all the people I expected to hear from, Ashley was not on the list. You've got 30 seconds, I said coldly. I didn't know, she said quickly, her words tumbling over each other. I swear to God I didn't know he got married. He told me the wedding was canceled. He said you guys broke up, and he was taking me on this trip to celebrate being free. I saw your Instagram post, and I confronted him, and he admitted everything, and I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I sat down heavily on the couch. You didn't know?
No.
She was crying now. I would never. I'm not that person. When he told his family about me, he said they were upset but accepting. He said you guys had broken up months ago. He showed me a text conversation with his mom where she welcomed me to the family. I thought it was real. I thought we were going to get married. He showed you texts from Patricia?
Yes.
They looked real. But now I'm wondering if he faked them somehow. Harper, I swear, if I'd known he was married, if I'd known about you at all, I never would have been with him. I believed her. I could hear the genuine anguish in her voice. Where is he now?
I asked. Still in the Maldives. I flew home early.
Took the first flight I could get. I couldn't even look at him after I found out. He's been calling me nonstop, but I blocked his number. Good, I said. Block him everywhere. And Ashley? Save everything. Every text, every email, every photo. You're going to need it. For what? Because you might not have known he was married, but he definitely knew. And when this all comes out in court, you're going to want to prove that he lied to you too. There was silence on the other end of the line. Then, court. I'm divorcing him. And it's going to get ugly. You should probably get your own lawyer. Oh my God, she whispered. This is such a mess. I thought he loved me. I thought we had a future. Yeah, I said bitterly. I thought that too. After we hung up, I sat staring at my phone. Ashley Brennan wasn't the enemy. She was another victim. Dylan had lied to her just as thoroughly as he'd lied to me. The real enemy was Dylan himself, and possibly Richard. These men who thought they could manipulate people's lives for their own benefit. They were both about to learn a very expensive lesson about the cost of betrayal. Tomorrow, Dylan would return from the Maldives. He'd find his business deal falling apart, his wife filing for divorce, and his father being investigated for financial fraud. He'd probably try to fight back.
Try to spin this somehow.
Try to make himself the victim. But I was ready for him. I had evidence. I had allies. I had lawyers and accountants and a mother-in-law who was just as angry as I was. Most importantly, I had the truth on my side. And the truth, as they say, will set you free, even if it destroys everything else in the process. Dylan returned from the Maldives on a Thursday afternoon. I know because Patricia texted me the moment his car pulled into the driveway at Magnolia Heights. He's home. Richard is waiting for him in the study. This should be interesting. I was at the condo, working remotely on a project for my advertising firm. My boss had been incredibly understanding when I'd called to explain the situation. She'd given me 2 weeks of flexible work from home time to handle personal matters. I couldn't focus on the campaign brief in front of me. All I could think about was Dylan walking into that house, probably expecting his mother to greet him warmly, his father to congratulate him on whatever lies he'd told about the Maldives trip. Instead, he was walking into an ambush. My phone rang within the hour. Patricia, you need to hear this, she said without preamble. I'm putting you on speaker. Stay quiet. I heard shuffling, then voices. Dylan's voice, defensive and angry. Don't understand why everyone is acting like I committed murder. So, I took a vacation. So what? With your mistress? Patricia's voice was like ice. 2 days after your wedding. How do you not see the problem with that? Ashley's not my mistress. She's my girlfriend. Harper was your wife. Patricia cut him off. Harper is your wife, Dylan. You stood in a church and made vows to her. Vows that meant nothing. Dylan shouted. I'd never heard him raise his voice to his mother before. It was a business arrangement. Dad and I agreed. A business arrangement? Patricia's voice went dangerously quiet. You married a woman as a business arrangement? There was silence. Then Richard's voice, attempting to sound reasonable. Patricia, you're blowing this out of proportion. It was a strategic decision. Don't. Patricia cut him off too. Don't you dare try to rationalize this to me, Richard. You helped him. You knew about Ashley. You knew Dylan was planning to use Harper and then discard her. And you said nothing. It was for the Greenfield deal, Richard said, his voice hardening. $20 million, Patricia. $20 million. That kind of money doesn't come along every day. If Dylan needed to be married to secure it, then that's what he needed to do. And it never occurred to either of you that using a human being as a prop might be morally wrong? Patricia asked. Oh, please. Dylan's voice was dripping with disdain now. Harper got to have her fairy tale wedding. She got to play princess for a day. It's not like she didn't benefit from the arrangement. I felt like I'd been slapped. That's what he thought. That I should be grateful for being used? Dylan Marcus Matthews. Patricia's voice shook with rage. How dare you? That woman loved you. She believed in you. She was ready to build a life with you. Well, that was her mistake, Dylan said coldly. I never promised her forever. The plan was always to divorce her quietly after a year or so, once the Greenfield deal was solid. She would have gotten a nice settlement, walked away with more money than she'd ever seen in her life. Everyone wins. Except Harper never agreed to that plan, did she? Patricia said. She thought she was entering a real marriage. That's not my problem. The callousness in his voice made my stomach turn. It's about to become your problem, Patricia said. Harper's filing for divorce. Immediately. With proof of adultery. So? We can settle quietly. I'll give her some money. She'll sign an NDA, and this all goes away. It's not going away, Dylan. Patricia's voice was triumphant now. Harper sent evidence of your affair to Marcus Greenfield. Your $20 million deal? It's dead. The silence that followed was deafening. She did what? Dylan's voice was barely a whisper. She sent him screenshots of your Instagram posts. Bank statements showing you paid for the Maldives trip with joint account funds. Everything.
No.
Dylan sounded panicked now. No. She couldn't have. Marcus wouldn't. He has a morality clause, but he wouldn't actually. He already did, Patricia said. His lawyers contacted Jonathan Pierce this morning. They're terminating the partnership agreement effective immediately. Something about your behavior being inconsistent with their company values.
Dad.
Dylan's voice rose. Dad, do something. Call Marcus. Fix this. I can't fix this, son. Richard's voice had lost its confidence. Marcus Greenfield is a true believer in all that family values nonsense. If he's seen evidence of infidelity, there's nothing I can say that will change his mind. Then sue Harper. Dylan shouted. She had no right to contact Marcus. That's defamation or something. It's not defamation if it's true, Patricia said coldly. And it is true, isn't it? You were having an affair. You did post those photos. You did use joint funds for a trip with another woman. I heard something crash. Dylan throwing something, probably. This is insane, he yelled. She's destroying my life over nothing. So I had a girlfriend on the side. So what? Plenty of men do. It doesn't mean. It means you're a liar and a cheat, Patricia interrupted. And now you're going to face the consequences. You're enjoying this, Dylan said, his voice accusatory. You're actually enjoying watching me fail. I'm not enjoying anything, Patricia said quietly. I'm heartbroken that the son I raised turned into someone I don't recognize. Someone who treats people as disposable. Someone who lies without remorse. This is your fault. Dylan turned on his father. You said this would work. You said it was foolproof. You said. I said you needed to be careful, Richard snapped. I said don't post about Ashley on social media. I said keep the affair quiet until after you were divorced. Did you listen?
No.
You had to flaunt it. Had to post finally with my real love for the whole world to see. Because I was happy. Dylan shouted. For the first time in months, I was actually happy. Living with Harper, pretending to be in love with her, it was suffocating. Being with Ashley is real. It's over, Patricia said flatly. Ashley called me yesterday. She didn't know you were married, by the way. You lied to her too. Told her the wedding was canceled. She's devastated. She blocked your number. More silence. Then Dylan's voice, smaller now. She blocked me? What did you expect? Patricia asked. That she be fine with you lying to her? Using her as a pawn in your business schemes? She's a victim in this too. I love her, Dylan said, and for the first time, he sounded genuinely upset. I actually love her. This was all for us. The marriage, the deal, everything. So Ashley and I could have the life we wanted. And look how that turned out, Patricia said dryly. I heard footsteps, then Dylan's voice closer to the phone. Where's my phone? I need to call Ashley. I need to explain. She doesn't want to hear from you, Patricia said. And Dylan? You have bigger problems than Ashley right now. Sandra Chun is going through your business records. She's found some very interesting irregularities. Who the hell is Sandra Chun? A forensic accountant I hired to audit your and your father's business dealings. You did what? Richard's voice boomed. Patricia, you had no right. I had every right. Patricia shot back. My name is on half of everything you own, Richard. If you've been committing fraud, that makes me liable too. I'm protecting myself. There's no fraud, Richard said, but his voice lacked conviction. Then you have nothing to worry about, Patricia said sweetly. Sandra will just confirm everything's above board, and we can all move on. You're destroying this family, Dylan said, his voice breaking. Over what? Over Harper's hurt feelings? She'll get over it. She'll move on. But what you're doing, bringing in investigators, ruining my business deal, that's going to have permanent consequences. Good, Patricia said. Maybe permanent consequences are exactly what you need to learn that actions have repercussions. I heard more movement, a door slamming. Then Patricia's voice directly into the phone. Harper? Are you still there? I'm here, I said quietly. Did you hear all that? Every word. I'm sorry you had to hear him talk about you that way, Patricia said gently. But I thought you deserved to know exactly how he sees this situation. Thank you, I said, surprised to find I meant it. Hearing Dylan's callousness was painful, but it was also clarifying. Any remaining doubt I'd had about divorcing him, any lingering hope that maybe this could be salvaged, was completely gone now.
He didn't love me.
He'd never loved me. I was a business transaction that had outlived its usefulness. Well, this business transaction was about to cost him everything. After I hung up with Patricia, I sat in stunned silence. The reality of what Dylan had said was slowly sinking in. Everyone wins. That's what he'd said about his plan. I would get a settlement, walk away with money, and everyone wins. Except he'd never asked me if I wanted money. He'd never given me a choice at all. He'd stolen my agency, my autonomy, my ability to make informed decisions about my own life. And he saw nothing wrong with that. My phone buzzed with a text from Jonathan Pierce. Can you come to my office? Something's happened. I drove to his office in a daze, my mind still reeling from the conversation I'd overheard. Jonathan's secretary ushered me straight into his office. He was standing by the window, looking grim.
Harper, sit down, he said.
My heart sank. What's wrong? Dylan's filed a counterpetition, Jonathan said. He's claiming that you married him fraudulently with the intent to access his family's wealth. He's asking the judge to annul the marriage on the grounds of fraud and to hold you liable for damages to his business reputation. I stared at him. He's claiming I married him for money? After he just admitted to his parents that he married me for a business deal? He's also claiming defamation, Jonathan continued. Says your Instagram post and the email to Marcus Greenfield were malicious attempts to destroy his livelihood. But everything I posted was true. I know, Jonathan said. And truth is an absolute defense to defamation. But Harper, this is going to get nasty. He's fighting back and he has resources. His father has already hired one of the most expensive law firms in the state. I felt rage building in my chest. So what do? Jonathan's expression hardened. We fight back harder. I've filed a motion to compel discovery of all of Dylan's financial records. Bank statements, business dealings, everything. If he wants to claim you're the fraudulent party, we're going to show the court exactly who the real fraud is. What about the recording? I asked. The one Patricia made.
Can we use that?
Jonathan shook his head. South Carolina is a two-party consent state for recordings. Since Dylan didn't know he was being recorded, it's not admissible in court. But, he paused. It can be useful in other ways. For instance, if Dylan testifies under oath that he married you in good faith, and we know he's lying, we can impeach his testimony, I finished.
Exactly.
We can't use the recording directly, but we can use the information from it to know which questions to ask, which angles to pursue. My phone rang. Patricia. Harper, turn on Channel 7 News.
Now.
I pulled up the news channel on my phone. Jonathan turned on the TV in his office. The screen showed a reporter standing outside Greenfield Properties headquarters. Breaking news this afternoon as Greenfield Properties announces the termination of their partnership with Matthews Development. CEO Marcus Greenfield released a statement saying the decision was based on fundamental differences in values and ethics. This comes just days after Dylan Matthews, son of prominent developer Richard Matthews, married Charleston native Harper Sinclair in what was described as the social event of the season. The screen cut to footage of our wedding. Me in my white dress, Dylan in his tuxedo, both of us smiling for the cameras. Then the screen split, showing side by side our wedding photo and Dylan's Instagram post from the Maldives. Sources close to the situation say that Matthews was allegedly having an affair during his marriage, a claim supported by social media posts that have since gone viral. Greenfield Properties, known for their conservative values and family-first approach, has a morality clause in their partnership agreements that allows them to terminate relationships based on ethical concerns. The reporter continued, the terminated deal was worth an estimated $20 million and was set to be one of the largest development projects in South Carolina history. Matthew's development has not yet responded to requests for comment. I watched, stunned, as my private pain became public news. It's everywhere, Jonathan said, scrolling through his computer. Local news, business journals, social media. This story is blowing up. My phone started buzzing with notifications. Friends texting, people sharing the news article, my Instagram mentions going crazy. I felt exposed. Vulnerable. Like my life had become entertainment for strangers. But I also felt something else. Vindication. The world was seeing Dylan for what he really was. Not the charming businessman, not the eligible bachelor, but a liar and a cheater who'd lost a $20 million deal because he couldn't keep his affair quiet. Harper. Jonathan's voice brought me back to the present. This media attention can work in our favor. Public sympathy is on your side. But it also means Dylan and his father are going to be even more desperate to discredit you. You need to be prepared for them to dig into your past, to try to find anything they can use against you. There's nothing to find, I said. I've never even had a speeding ticket. Good. But they'll try anyway. Be prepared for private investigators, for people asking your friends questions, for scrutiny of your social media, your work history, everything. I nodded. What's our next move? We prepare for war, Jonathan said simply. Discovery starts next week. We're going to subpoena every financial record Dylan and Richard have. Bank statements, tax returns, business correspondence, everything. Sandra's preliminary findings suggest there's fraud, but we need hard proof. And what do I do in the meantime? You keep living your life, Jonathan said. Go to work. See your friends. Don't engage with Dylan or anyone from his family except Patricia. Don't post anything on social media. Don't give them any ammunition. I left Jonathan's office feeling like I was in the eye of a hurricane. Everything around me was chaos, but I had to stay calm, stay focused. When I got back to the condo, there was a package waiting at the door. No return address. I brought it inside cautiously and opened it. Inside was a USB drive and a note. Harper, I thought you should see this. I'm sorry for everything. Ashley. I plugged the USB into my laptop. It was full of files. Text messages between Ashley and Dylan. Photos. Emails. And one video file. I clicked on the video. It was Dylan talking to the camera. A selfie-style video, clearly meant for Ashley. Hey baby, video Dylan said, smiling. Just wanted to send you a quick message before the wedding tomorrow. I know this is hard. I know you hate that I have to do this. But remember, it's not real. Harper means nothing to me. You're my real love. You're my future. This time tomorrow, I'll have the ring on my finger, but my heart will still be with you. Just a few more months, and then we can be together forever. I love you. Only you. Always you. The video was dated the day before our wedding. I watched it 3 times, each viewing making me angrier. He'd made a video promising Ashley forever while simultaneously preparing to marry me. He'd called me nothing the day before he stood at an altar and vowed to cherish me for the rest of our lives. I forwarded the video to Jonathan with a message. Ashley sent this. Is this useful? His response came within minutes. Very. This proves premeditation. He knew the marriage was fraudulent before it even happened. This is gold, Harper. I leaned back on the couch, staring at the ceiling. Dylan had created this video, this permanent record of his intentions, and sent it to Ashley, probably never imagining that she would turn against him, that she would give it to me. But that's the thing about building your life on lies. Eventually, the foundation crumbles. The next few days were a blur of legal meetings, document signing, and media attention. My Instagram following tripled. People I'd never met were sending me messages of support. A few sent hate messages, calling me vindictive or saying I was destroying Dylan's life for revenge. I ignored them all. Patricia called me with updates. Richard had moved out of Magnolia Heights, taking up residence in one of their rental properties. He and Patricia were separated pending resolution of legal matters, which was a polite way of saying she'd kicked him out. Dylan was staying at a hotel. None of his friends wanted to associate with him anymore, not after the public scandal. His father's law firm had billed him $100,000 in the first week alone. The Greenfield deal was officially dead. Marcus had released a statement expressing disappointment in Dylan's moral failings and reaffirming Greenfield Properties' commitment to ethical partnerships. And Sandra Chun had found the smoking gun. Patricia called me late on a Tuesday night, her voice trembling with a mixture of anger and vindication. "Harper," Sandra found it. "Proof of fraud. Dylan and Richard have been inflating property values on their tax assessments, claiming false business expenses, and hiding money in offshore accounts. It's extensive, it's deliberate, and it's absolutely illegal." "What happens now?" I asked. "Sandra's reporting it to the IRS and the state tax authority. There will be an investigation. If they find what we found." Patricia paused. "Dylan and Richard could face criminal charges." "Good," I said and meant it. "There's more," Patricia continued. "Some of the fraud involves properties that were supposed to be sold to investors. Dylan took their money, but never completed the projects. That's wire fraud. Federal crime. FBI jurisdiction." I felt a chill run down my spine. This had escalated beyond a messy divorce. This was potentially sending Dylan and Richard to prison. "Harper, I need you to understand what this means," Patricia said seriously. "If this becomes a criminal case, you'll likely be called as a witness. The divorce proceedings might get delayed. Things could get very complicated." "I understand," I said. "And I'm ready." "Good. Because Dylan's going to blame you for all of this. He already is, actually. He's telling anyone who'll listen that you seduced him, married him for his money, and when that didn't work, you decided to destroy him out of spite." I laughed bitterly. "Of course he is. Because taking responsibility for his own actions would be too difficult. Just be prepared," Patricia warned. "He's desperate now. Desperate people do stupid things." She was right to warn me. 2 days later, I came home to find my condo door ajar. I called 911 immediately, standing in the hallway while I waited for the police. When they arrived and cleared the apartment, I went inside to assess the damage. It had been ransacked. Drawers pulled open, papers scattered everywhere, my laptop missing. "Anything else gone?" the officer asked. I checked my bedroom, the bathroom, the kitchen. "No. Just the laptop." "Any idea who might have done this?" "My soon-to-be ex-husband," I said. "We're in the middle of a very contentious divorce." The officer took down all the information, gave me a case number, and said they'd look into it. But I knew they wouldn't find anything. Dylan was too smart to break in himself. He'd hired someone. I called Jonathan immediately. "He's looking for evidence," Jonathan said grimly. "Probably hoping to find something he can use against you in court." "Did he get anything important?" "The laptop," I said. "But everything from it is backed up to the cloud. And it's password protected." "Change all your passwords anyway," Jonathan advised. "Bank accounts, email, social media, everything." "And Harper?" "I'm filing for a restraining order tomorrow. This is harassment. Possibly intimidation." That night, I stayed at Patricia's guest house. I couldn't sleep in the condo, not knowing someone had broken in. Patricia made up the guest room, brought me tea, sat with me while I tried to process everything. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. "I know I keep saying that, but I am. This is my son causing you this pain." "He's not your responsibility," I said. "He made his own choices." "I keep wondering where I went wrong," Patricia admitted. "Richard and we gave Dylan everything. The best schools, every opportunity. We taught him right from wrong. Or, at least, I thought we did. Some people just have something broken inside them," I said. "Something that makes them think they're above the rules everyone else follows." Patricia nodded sadly. "You're probably right. But it doesn't make it any easier to watch." We sat in comfortable silence for a while. Then Patricia said, "Harper, I want you to know that regardless of what happens with the divorce, with the criminal investigation, with any of this, you'll always have a friend in me. You've shown more grace and strength through this ordeal than I could have imagined. I'm proud to know you." I felt tears prick my eyes. "Thank you. That means more than you know." The next morning, I woke to news that made everything else pale in comparison. Dylan had been arrested. Jonathan called to tell me. The FBI moved faster than expected. They raided Matthew's development this morning. arrested both Dylan and Richard for wire fraud, tax evasion, and money laundering. I sat down heavily. Already? Sandra's evidence was that strong, Jonathan said. And apparently, there were other victims who'd already filed complaints, but hadn't gotten anywhere. Sandra's findings gave the FBI the ammunition they needed to move. What happens now? They'll be arraigned later today. They'll probably make bail, but Harper, this is serious. If convicted, they're looking at significant prison time. I should have felt triumphant. This was the ultimate consequence. Dylan wasn't just losing the divorce, losing his business deal, losing his reputation. He was losing his freedom. But instead, I just felt tired. Tired of the fighting. Tired of the drama. Tired of my life revolving around Dylan Matthews and his spectacular downfall. I wanted to move on. I wanted to rebuild. I wanted to be Harper Sinclair again, not Harper the woman who destroyed Dylan Matthews. But I wasn't there yet. The legal battles were just beginning. The divorce wasn't finalized. The criminal trial would take months, maybe years. I was in this for the long haul, whether I wanted to be or not. That afternoon, every news channel was covering the arrest. Footage of Dylan and Richard being led out of their office in handcuffs. Reporters shouting questions. The Matthews family legacy crumbling in real time. My phone wouldn't stop ringing. Reporters wanting my comment. Friends checking on me. My mother, worried and upset. I turned my phone off and sat in silence. This was it. The crisis point. The moment where everything came crashing down. Dylan had lost everything. His business, his relationship, his freedom, his reputation. And I had won, if you could call it winning. But victory felt hollow. Because at the end of the day, I'd still been betrayed. I'd still had my heart broken. I'd still been used and discarded like I didn't matter. No amount of revenge could change that. All I could do now is wait for the legal system to run its course and hope that someday, on the other side of all this, I could find peace. But that peace seemed very far away, because this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The real battle was about to begin. 6 months after Dylan's arrest, I sat in a courtroom in downtown Greenville, watching my soon-to-be ex-husband squirm under cross-examination. Jonathan Pierce stood at the podium, calm and methodical, asking Dylan questions he clearly didn't want to answer. Mr. Matthews, when you married my client on June 10th, did you intend for that marriage to be permanent? Dylan's expensive lawyer, a man named Carter Willoughby, who charged $800 an hour, objected. Relevance, Your Honor. The judge, a no-nonsense woman in her 60s named Judge Patricia Monroe, no relation to my Patricia, overruled him. The witness will answer the question. Dylan shifted in his seat. He'd lost weight since the arrest. His expensive suit hung a little loose on his frame, and there were dark circles under his eyes. Prison jumpsuit orange hadn't been kind to his complexion during the weeks before he'd made bail. I intended to honor my commitment, he said carefully. That's not what I asked, Jonathan said smoothly. I asked if you intended for the marriage to be permanent. Yes or no? Objection. Carter tried again, badgering the witness. Overruled. Answer the question, Mr. Matthews. Dylan glanced at his lawyer, who could only shake his head helplessly. No, Dylan finally admitted. I did not intend for the marriage to be permanent. A murmur went through the courtroom. Judge Monroe banged her gavel once. And why did you marry Mrs. Matthews if you didn't intend for the marriage to be permanent? Jonathan asked. It was a business decision. A business decision, Jonathan repeated. Can you elaborate? Dylan's jaw tightened. I needed to be married to secure a partnership deal. The company I was partnering with had preferences about working with family men. So you married my client to commit fraud, Jonathan said flatly. Objection. Carter was on his feet. Counsel is testifying. Sustained. Judge Monroe said. Rephrase, Mr. Pierce. Mr. Matthews, you married my client knowing that you were in a relationship with another woman, correct? Yes. And you married my client knowing that you intended to divorce her within a year or two, correct? Yes. And you married my client without disclosing any of these intentions to her, correct? Yes. And you used marital funds that my client had contributed to equally, to finance vacations with your mistress, correct? Dylan hesitated. The account was for both of us to use. For marital expenses. Jonathan clarified. Was a vacation with another woman a marital expense, Mr. Matthews? Silence. I'll take that as a no, Jonathan said. He turned to Judge Monroe. No further questions, Your Honor. I watched Dylan step down from the witness stand, his face red with humiliation. 6 months ago, he'd been a successful developer with a bright future. Now he was a defendant in both a divorce proceeding and a federal criminal trial, his business destroyed, his reputation in tatters. The divorce trial lasted 3 days. Jonathan presented our evidence methodically. The Instagram posts, the bank statements, Ashley's video, text messages, everything. He called Patricia as a witness, who testified about the conversation she'd overheard where Dylan admitted the marriage was a business arrangement. Carter Willoughby tried his best to paint me as a gold digger who'd known about the arrangement all along and was now trying to extract maximum financial benefit. But he couldn't produce any evidence to support that theory, because there was none. On the third day, Judge Monroe issued her ruling. This court finds that Mr. Matthews entered into marriage with Mrs. Matthews fraudulently and with deliberate intent to deceive. The marriage is hereby annulled on the grounds of fraud. Furthermore, this court awards Mrs. Matthews compensatory damages in the amount of $500,000 for emotional distress, damage to reputation, and loss of opportunities resulting from Mr. Matthews' fraudulent actions. $500,000. I hadn't even asked for that much. Judge Monroe had decided on her own that Dylan needed to pay for what he'd done. Additionally, the judge continued, Mr. Matthews is ordered to pay all of Mrs. Matthews' legal fees, which currently total $120,000. Mrs. Matthews is entitled to keep all gifts received at the wedding, as well as her full contribution to the joint account. Mr. Matthews is prohibited from contacting Mrs. Matthews directly or indirectly, except through legal counsel. She banged her gavel. This court is adjourned. I sat there, stunned. I'd won. Completely and totally won. Jonathan turned to me with a small smile. Congratulations, Ms. Sinclair. Ms. Sinclair. Not Mrs. Matthews. The marriage was annulled, erased, like it had never happened. I was Harper Sinclair again. Outside the courtroom, reporters were waiting. They shouted questions as I walked past with Jonathan. Ms. Sinclair, how does it feel to win? Will you be testifying in the criminal trial? Do you have any comment about Mr. Matthews' arrest? Jonathan had coached me on this. I stopped, turned to face the cameras, and gave the statement we'd prepared. I'm grateful that the court recognized the truth of what happened. My hope now is to move forward with my life and put this difficult chapter behind me. I have no further comment on Mr. Matthews or his legal situation. Thank you. Short. Professional. Dignified. I got into Jonathan's car, and we drove away from the courthouse, leaving the media circus behind. $500,000, I said, still processing. I can't believe it. Believe it, Jonathan said. And that's just from the divorce. If the criminal trial results in a conviction, which it almost certainly will, you may be entitled to additional restitution as a victim of his fraudulent scheme. I don't want more money, I said. I just want it to be over. It will be, Jonathan assured me. The criminal trial is the prosecutor's problem now, not yours. Unless they call you as a witness, you're done. You're free.
Free.
The word felt strange. For 6 months, my entire life had revolved around this legal battle. Strategy sessions with Jonathan, meetings with Patricia and Sandra, document review, depositions, preparation for trial. It had consumed everything. And now it was over. I didn't know what to do with myself. Patricia invited me to dinner that night to celebrate. We met at a quiet restaurant in downtown Greenville, far from the courthouse and the reporters. She hugged me when I arrived. Congratulations, dear. You were magnificent in there. I barely said anything, I pointed out. Exactly, Patricia said with a smile. You let the evidence speak for itself. That's the sign of a strong case and a strong woman. We ordered wine and appetizers, and for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe. Have you heard from Dylan? I asked. Patricia's expression darkened. He called me from jail last week. Before he made bail, wanted me to put up Magnolia Heights as collateral. What did you say? I said no, Patricia said firmly. Richard already used our Florida property for his bail. I'm not risking my home for two men who lied to me, used me, and broke the law. How is Richard?
I asked.
Facing 15 years in federal prison if convicted, Patricia said. His lawyers are trying to negotiate a plea deal, but the prosecution isn't budging. They want to make an example of him and Dylan both. And you? I asked gently. How are you handling all of this? Patricia was quiet for a moment. I'm divorcing Richard, she finally said. My lawyer filed the papers last week. I reached across the table and squeezed her hand.
I'm sorry.
Don't be, she said. 32 years I was married to that man. 32 years I trusted him, supported him, stood by him. And he threw it all away to help our son commit fraud. I deserve better than that. You do, I agreed. So do you, Patricia said, looking at me seriously. Harper, I know these last 6 months have been hell, but you came through it. You're stronger than you were. And you have your whole life ahead of you. I smiled. That's what my mom keeps saying. Your mother is a wise woman, Patricia said. Speaking of which, how is she?
Good, I said.
Proud, I think. Relieved it's over. She's been wanting me to come visit Charleston, spend some time away from Greenville, and all the memories here. That's not a bad idea, Patricia said thoughtfully. Sometimes a change of scenery is exactly what you need. We finished dinner and said our goodbyes. Patricia hugged me tightly. Thank you, she whispered, for being brave enough to expose the truth, for not letting them get away with it. You saved me from years more of living a lie. We saved each other, I said. The next morning, I woke up in the downtown condo and realized I didn't have anywhere I needed to be. No court dates. No lawyer meetings. No reporters to avoid.
Just me and the rest of my life.
I made coffee and sat by the window, watching Greenville wake up. The city looked different somehow. Lighter. Like a weight had been lifted.
My phone rang.
My boss, Jennifer, from the advertising firm. Harper. I heard the news. Congratulations.
Thank you, I said.
Listen, I wanted to talk to you about something, Jennifer said. We've been so impressed with your work these past 6 months. Despite everything you've been dealing with, you've never missed a deadline, never dropped the ball. You're one of our best. I appreciate that, I said, wondering where this was going. We're opening a new office in Charleston, Jennifer continued, and we need someone to head it up. Someone smart, capable, who understands the southern market. I immediately thought of you. Charleston.
My hometown.
It would be a promotion, Jennifer continued. Significant salary increase, your own team, creative control over regional campaigns. And Harper, it would get you out of Greenville. Give you a fresh start. A fresh start. In Charleston, where my mother was. Where I'd grown up. Where I had roots. Can I think about it?
I asked.
Of course, Jennifer said. Take a week. Talk it over with your mom. But Harper? I really hope you say yes. After we hung up, I sat with the offer, turning it over in my mind. Greenville had become the city of my greatest heartbreak. Every street corner held a memory of Dylan. The restaurant where we had our first date. The park where he proposed. The courthouse where our marriage was annulled. Charleston would be different. Charleston was home. I called my mother. Mom, how would you feel about having me back in Charleston? Permanently? The joy in her voice was unmistakable. Oh, Harper. I would love that more than anything. My firm wants me to head their new Charleston office, I explained. It's a big promotion. Better pay. And it would be a new beginning. Then you should take it, my mother said immediately. There's nothing left for you in Greenville except bad memories. Come home, baby. Come home and heal. I accepted the position that afternoon. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of packing, planning, saying goodbyes. Patricia helped me pack up the condo, sharing stories and laughter as we wrapped dishes and folded clothes. You know, she said one afternoon, I'm going to miss you terribly. Charleston's only a few hours away, I pointed out. You can visit anytime. I will, she promised. And Harper, thank you for letting me be part of your life during all of this. You didn't have to include me. I'm Dylan's mother. You could have shut me out. You're not responsible for what Dylan did, I said. And you've been more of a mother to me these past months than a mother-in-law. I'm grateful for you. We hugged, both of us crying a little. Ashley Brennan reached out to me before I left. We met for coffee, two women who'd both been deceived by the same man. I'm sorry, she said for probably the 10th time since we'd started talking. I know I keep saying it, but I should have known something was wrong. The signs were all there.
He's a good liar, I said.
That's not your fault. Are you really moving to Charleston? She asked.
Yeah.
New job, new city, new start. That sounds amazing, Ashley said wistfully. I'm thinking about moving too. Maybe Atlanta. Somewhere nobody knows me as that woman who dated the guy who went to federal prison. I laughed despite myself. That is a lengthy title, right? Ashley grinned. Doesn't fit on business cards. We'd both been through hell because of Dylan, but we'd survived. And in a strange way, we'd become friends. You know what the crazy thing is? Ashley said. I thought he was the love of my life. I was so sure we were meant to be together. And now I can't even remember why I loved him. I know exactly what you mean, I said. Do you think we'll ever trust anyone again? She asked quietly.
I thought about that.
About the fear that Dylan had planted in me. The voice that whispered, what if they're lying? Every time someone said something kind. I think we'll be more careful, I finally said. We'll pay attention to red flags instead of ignoring them. We'll trust our instincts. But yeah, I think we'll trust again. Eventually. I hope you're right, Ashley said. We parted with a hug, two survivors of the same storm, going our separate ways to rebuild our lives. The criminal trial happened 3 months after I moved to Charleston. I was called as a witness for the prosecution. I drove back to Greenville, stayed with Patricia, and testified about the joint account, the wedding expenses, Dylan's deception. I was on the stand for 4 hours, and Dylan's lawyer tried everything to discredit me. But I had the truth on my side. And the truth, combined with Sandra's financial evidence and testimony from other victims of Dylan and Richard's schemes, was damning. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. Guilty on all counts. Dylan was sentenced to 8 years in federal prison. Richard got 12. I watched from the gallery as they were led away in handcuffs. Dylan didn't look at me. Richard stared straight ahead, his face expressionless. Patricia sat beside me, holding my hand. She didn't cry. She just sat there, watching the consequences of her husband and son's actions play out. It's over, she whispered. It's really over. And it was. I drove back to Charleston that night, back to my new apartment in a historic building downtown, just a few blocks from my mother's house. Back to my new office with my new team. Back to my new life. The life I was building for myself. Not as someone's wife. Not as a victim. Just as Harper Sinclair, marketing director, daughter, friend, survivor. Charleston welcomed me home. The city of my childhood, now the city of my second chance. I threw myself into work. The Charleston office was small but growing, and I loved the challenge of building something from the ground up. My team was talented and enthusiastic, and together we landed some impressive accounts. I had dinner with my mother every Sunday. She'd cook my favorite meals, and we'd sit on her porch swing, talking about everything and nothing. She never brought up Dylan unless I did. She just let me heal at my own pace. I made new friends, joined a book club, started running along the Battery in the mornings. Slowly, I built a life that had nothing to do with Dylan Matthews or the nightmare he'd put me through. And one Saturday afternoon, about a year after I'd moved back to Charleston, I met someone. His name was Marcus. Not Marcus Greenfield, different Marcus. This one was an architect who'd moved to Charleston from Savannah. We literally bumped into each other at a coffee shop. I spilled my latte all over his shirt. The irony wasn't lost on me. I am so sorry, I said, grabbing napkins and trying to help. He laughed. It's fine. I have another shirt in my car. Still, I feel terrible. Can I buy you a coffee to make up for it? Only if you let me buy you lunch to make up for making you feel terrible, he countered. And just like that, we were talking. About his architecture firm. About my marketing work. About Charleston and why we both loved it. He asked for my number. I gave it to him. And when he called to ask me out to dinner, I said yes. I was nervous before our first date. Terrified, actually. What if I couldn't trust my judgment? What if I picked another liar, another user? But Marcus was different. He was kind and genuine, and he listened when I talked. He didn't love bomb me with grand gestures. He just showed up consistently, honestly, authentically. On our third date, I told him about Dylan, about the fake marriage, the betrayal, the trial. I laid it all out there, watching his face for judgment or pity. What I saw instead was compassion. That must have been incredibly painful, he said quietly. I'm sorry you went through that. I admitted. And it made me really cautious about trusting people. That makes sense, Marcus said. For what it's worth, I'm not in any rush. We can take this as slow as you need. And we did. We dated for 6 months before I even let him meet my mother. A full year before we said, I love you. 2 years before we moved in together.
Slow.
Careful. Built on honesty and mutual respect. Everything my relationship with Dylan had been. Patricia visited often. She and my mother became friends, bonding over their shared experience of raising their children alone. Patricia newly divorced, my mother long since abandoned. Patricia had sold Magnolia Heights and bought a smaller house in Charleston, wanting to be closer to me and farther from the memories of Greenville. That house was never mine anyway, she said when I asked why she'd sold it. It was Richard's family home, Richard's legacy. I'm building my own legacy now. She'd started a foundation to help victims of financial fraud, used her connections and resources to provide free legal assistance to people who couldn't afford lawyers like Jonathan Pierce. It was her way of turning her pain into purpose. Dylan got out of prison after serving 5 years of his 8-year sentence. Good behavior, apparently. I heard about his release through Patricia. He'd moved to somewhere in the Midwest, changed his name, was working as a salesman for a furniture company. The mighty had fallen indeed. I felt nothing.
No satisfaction. No pity. No anger.
Just nothing. He was a chapter in my life that had closed. A painful chapter, but a finished one. Richard served his full 12 years. I never heard what happened to him after his release. I didn't care to know. 3 years after moving to Charleston, I got a promotion to regional director, overseeing our offices in Charleston, Savannah, and Columbia. My mother beamed with pride at the news. For years after moving to Charleston, Marcus proposed. On a beach, like Dylan had, but everything about it was different. It was sunset, but there were no rose petals or violinists. Just the two of us, walking along the shore, talking about our future. Harper Sinclair, he said, stopping and taking my hand, I love you. Not because you're perfect, but because you're real. You're brave and strong and you've been through hell and come out the other side even more amazing than you were before. I want to spend my life with you if you'll have me. He pulled out a simple platinum band with a single diamond. Not flashy. Not ostentatious. Just beautiful. This isn't about contracts or business deals or anything other than the fact that I love you and want to build a life with you. A real life. An honest life. Will you marry me? I looked into his eyes and saw sincerity.
Truth. Love.
Yes, I said. Yes, I'll marry you. We got married at my mother's house. Small ceremony, just close friends and family. Patricia was there, crying happy tears. My advertising team came. Marcus's family flew in from Savannah. It was nothing like my first wedding. No fancy plantation venue, no 200 guests, no expensive flowers or elaborate cake. It was real. It was intimate. It was perfect. And when Marcus and I said our vows we'd written ourselves, I meant every word. I promise to be honest with you, even when it's hard. I promise to respect you and value you for who you are, not what you can do for me. I promise to build our life together, not use you to build mine. I promise to love you, for real, for always, for the rest of our lives. Marcus's vows were similar. Promises of honesty, respect, partnership, love. The exact opposite of everything Dylan had promised and then destroyed. We honeymooned in Greece. The trip Dylan and I had talked about taking but never did. And it was magical. Everything a honeymoon should be. 5 years after Dylan's betrayal, I stood on a balcony in Santorini, watching the sunset with my husband's arms around me, and realized something profound. Dylan hadn't destroyed me. He'd tried. He'd lied, cheated, used me, humiliated me. But I'd survived. More than survived, I'd thrived. I had a career I loved.
a husband who valued me, friends who supported me, a mother who was proud of me, a life built on authenticity and truth. Dylan was in the Midwest selling furniture. His name changed, his reputation ruined, his legacy one of fraud and betrayal. And I was here, in Greece, living a life he could never touch, never taint, never ruin. In the end, the best revenge wasn't destroying him, though I'd certainly played a part in that. The best revenge was building a life so good, so full, so real that what he'd done to me became just a story I sometimes told. A cautionary tale with a happy ending. A reminder that betrayal doesn't have to define you. That pain doesn't have to break you. That sometimes the worst thing that ever happens to you leads you exactly where you need to be. I'd lost Dylan Matthews, but I'd found Harper Sinclair, and that was worth everything. So here's what I learned from my story, and what I hope you take away from it too. First, trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is. I ignored red flags with Dylan. The postponed honeymoon, the secretive behavior, the way he kept me separate from parts of his life. I told myself I was being paranoid. I should have listened to that voice. Second, you're not responsible for other people's lies. Dylan's betrayal wasn't about me. It was about him, his character, his choices, his moral failings. For a long time, I wondered what I'd done wrong, what I could have done differently. The answer is nothing. I couldn't have prevented him from being who he was. Third, documentation is everything. Screenshot, save, record. If I hadn't saved those Instagram posts, those bank statements, that video from Ashley, the divorce could have gone very differently. Evidence matters. Fourth, find your allies. Patricia could have sided with her son. She chose truth instead. Jonathan could have been just a lawyer billing hours. He became an advocate. My mother, my friends, even Ashley, they all showed me that I wasn't alone. Don't try to fight your battles by yourself. Fifth, money isn't justice, but it helps. That $500,000 Judge Monroe awarded me? I used part of it to pay off my student loans. Part of it went into savings. And part of it funded a scholarship for young women from low-income families pursuing careers in marketing. Turning pain into purpose is powerful. Sixth, moving on doesn't mean forgetting. I'll always carry the scar of what Dylan did, but scars are proof that you survived. They're not wounds anymore. They're just marks that show where you've been and how strong you had to become. And finally, love exists. Real love. The kind that doesn't manipulate or deceive or use. The kind that sees you for who you are and values that. The kind that builds you up instead of tearing you down. I found that love with Marcus. But more importantly, I found it with myself. I learned to love Harper Sinclair, the strong, capable, resilient woman who survived betrayal and came out the other side better than before. If you're going through something similar, if someone has betrayed your trust, used your love, broken your heart, please know this. You will survive. You will heal. You will build a life beyond this pain. And someday, like me, you'll look back on this moment as the beginning of your real story. The story where you're the hero, not the victim. The story where you win. Did you enjoy this story? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Let me know where you're watching from and if this story resonated with you in any way. Your support means the world to me, and if you'd like to send a super thanks, it helps me continue bringing you stories like this one. Don't forget to check out the other stories on my channel. There are so many more journeys of strength, resilience, and triumph waiting for you. Subscribe if you haven't already, and turn on notifications so you never miss a new story. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being part of this community where we share these important stories together. See you in the next one, with love and respect.